Great. Hello and welcome to this episode of LinkedIn Live. Good evening to all my friends. This is a show where we hold a no holds barred, straightforward conversation with leaders from business and technology domain. For every episode, we host an accomplished leader from the fraternity. And today's episode is so very special that we have an Indian CEO on the show who's sitting far away in the city of New Jersey, United States, and has also recently published a best-selling book titled Winning in the Digital Age, 7 Building Blocks of Successful Digital Transformation. Now, since I've already spilled all the beans, so let me also tell you about him. We have the fortune of having with us on this show today Nitin Seth, who's an industry thought leader, an entrepreneur, a management consultant, a CEO, and now also an author of a best-selling book. Nitin is currently holding the corner office of Incedo Inc., where he is responsible for definition and execution of company's strategy, creating and implementing on its vision and mission, and shaping a unique and effective organizational culture. Now, prior to joining Incedo, Nitin was the COO of Flipkart, where he was responsible for customer and supply chain operations. He has also held he has also headed Fidelity International as the MD and country head for India. And prior to that, he was the director of McKinsey's Global Knowledge Center in India. He holds an MBA from IIM Lucknow and a degree in engineering, which was BTech from IIT Delhi. Now, before we move on to interact with the author, CEO, and leader Nitin, allow me to spend a couple of minutes with all of you so that I can set the tone of this conversation. It reminds me of those of really, truer than true words by two of the great businessmen of the internet era. One of those is Jeff Bezos, who once said that it is hard to find things that won't sell online. And it's absolutely bang on in today's context. And the second one is Eric Schmidt, who in his book, which was titled The New Digital Age, Reshaping the Future of People, Nations, and Business, said, and I quote, that Moore's law, the rule of thumb in the technology industry, tells us that processor chips, which is the smallest circuit board that form the backbone of every computing device, double in speed every 18 months. That means a computer in 2025 will be 64 times faster than what it was in 2013. To me, these quotes are enough to build the foundation of a digital age, digital transformation, digital business, or whatever else we want to call it. Organizations are quite aware or quite frightened also that if they postpone or shy away from riding this wave of digital, they are at a greater risk of being obsolete or even extinct. Pardon my words; these are quite hard words that I'm using, but that's a true. These are true words. This is especially true in times of the disruption that we are living in. In a very recent study that was commissioned by Twilio, 97% of organizations reported that COVID-19 sped up their digital transformation, and 68% of those respondents said that the pandemic sped up their digital transformation a great deal. So every industry, every organization will have to transform itself in the next few years. What is coming at us is bigger than the original internet, and we need to understand it, get on board, and figure out how to transform the business. So immediately, let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Nitin. I'm greatly honored, and it's our pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks so much, Rahul. No, it is my pleasure, and so good to be talking to you again. And thanks for setting up the conversation so beautifully. Both the quotes that you shared and some of the data points that you shared actually just lay out the picture of the digital age. This is this is the age we are living in. This is the defining mega trend of our generation. And I'm looking forward to your tough questions.
No, absolutely no tough questions to, I mean, I'm afraid to ask questions to us to an accomplished CEO, accomplished business leader. However, let me just immediately begin our conversation, and I've actually divided the conversation in three parts. So we'll go from warm up to a little slightly more transactional to a very visionary part of it. So, publishing a well articulated contemporary business bestseller can raise one's visibility and garner most of media coverage. It also lends authority and credibility to an author. And publishing a book can even help your business maybe indirectly. It won't be wrong to say that a published book is more impactful identity than a business card, but at the same time, book writing isn't for everyone. What went in your mind when you decided to write this elaborate, very well-rounded book um, titled, which I can showcase to all our uh, viewers right now, "Winning in the Digital Age"? What was the trigger? What was the inspiration, Nitin?
Rahul, something like this. See, this is quite a large book. This is 550 pages. Something like this doesn't happen overnight. So the whole see and see the thought process behind this is a lot more than marketing or PR or a calling card. That the thought process really is about giving back. As human beings, we have this desire to leave a mark, to make a difference, and that really has been my driver. So for the last 10 years, I have been writing. I've been writing a blog. I call it Nitin's Pandas. I've been writing in Forbes and other publications, and over a period of time, that body of knowledge built up. Yeah, and once it built up, the thought process was had been there in my mind that, look, I want to really bring it all together so that it can be disseminated. Because when you're writing blogs or you're speaking, there is a certain limited reach. And I think COVID, you talked about how COVID has accelerated digital transformation. I think COVID gave me the opportunity of some downtime where I'm not traveling like crazy, and I was able to take a couple of months out and bring all what I had written over 10 years together into a coherent book. So it has been about triggered by the thought of giving back whatever I have had the great privilege, fortune of learning through my career journey. It has been happening over a long period of time, but COVID was certainly a very helpful trigger, Rahul.
So, how much time precisely did you take to compile and publish this book?
See, that was super fast actually. So I did this over 2.5, 3 months, which I think is quite exceptional. So I think early October, Penguin Random House, showed interest in publishing it, which I was very surprised by, because I didn't think that such a large publisher would be interested. But once they said, "Oh, we are very keen. This seems like a great topic and a great kind of set of themes," then for the next couple of months, I really went after it. By December, we had the manuscript.
Oh, great! I mean, that was really lightning fast. In fact, it takes ages for people. I mean, years for people to create manuscript, go to the publisher, and then back and forth. Anyway, you were lucky. So, I was going through parts of the book, and you had written about your early encounter with digital during the late 1990s, when you were with McKinsey. Generally, the McKinsey folks are quite elite and quite futuristic. And when I say elite, it's not in any derogatory way. I'm talking about elite in terms of their chiseled and polished knowledge on that subject. But in late 1990s, India was just about beginning with the mobile proliferation. Internet wasn't what we see today. I mean, in late 1990s, I have seen people using dial-ups in India. How would you map this journey from that day till today? How did it translate into an action plan for you, both in terms of your career progression and culminating into this book? And of course, tell us about everything in between that happened. You know, Fidelity, Flipkart, everything that happened.
That's a that's a big question, Rahul. See, a lot of things, when when you look in hindsight, you can, and it can be a very, very neat and strategic picture. But when you're doing things, things happen organically. A lot of things are serendipity. I've been very, very fortunate and privileged that I have had a set of experiences and opportunities which have mirrored the rise of the digital age over the last 20 plus years. So it started, as you mentioned, my time in McKinsey, late 1990s, internet had just come to India and it was a great opportunity. I had the amazing opportunity as part of McKinsey to initially do a lot of work with ICCI, where I was very directly involved in conceptualizing and kind of setting up ICCI Direct, which was the first e-broking platform in India of real scale, and was a great opportunity because it was a new business technology, but it was also a great organization execution challenge. And we were very fortunate that we had a very visionary um, client leader in Mr. Kamath, and there was a great thought process. So I think I could not have really asked for a better starting point to learn about internet and how you build a business in that. And then I subsequently ended up working with UTI and on their kind of, very big um, kind of transformation program for them in terms of their internal processes, putting up, what in today's language you will call like an enterprise-wide kind of system for them. So that was the starting point. That kind of excited me and said, okay, oh, I really know about this internet thing. I really know it well. So that prompted me to leave McKinsey and set up a dot-com venture of my own. That was the dot-com boom era with a couple of colleagues. And that dot-com venture was activekarma.com. It was about leveraging the internet to facilitate active, healthy lifestyle. Now that was a great disaster. It was still, early ages of internet in India, and we ended up overestimating the market size by, I think, 10,000 times. So, so clearly all of your words around, McKinsey and elite and chisel thinking and all of that. So
They
all
all
the
went.
good things that we were doing for clients, when you kind of get into the battlefield and start doing it, yourself, you realize, the reality. So it was just an amazing learning experience. It was a great disaster for us, and it was, the venture failed, and it was very, I think, very important for me because till that time in my life, in my career, I had never really seen failure. I'd been very fortunate, in my academics and my professional set of choices. So it was a huge thing to, start a, do a venture, and it failed. But it was, I think it was the greatest learning gift I could have got. I think failure is such a great gift because it really forces you to assess things. And then I went back to McKinsey. That was like B2C, at that time, back to consulting. So I went back to McKinsey, and I had the great privilege then of leading the McKinsey Knowledge Center. Yeah, and it was kind of right place, right time, because see, data was beginning to explode in the 2002, 2003, that time frame. So I ended up setting up analytics as a new service line for McKinsey. And then, and analytics has been a very, very important aspect of this digital age. I ended up setting up a lot of new knowledge platform based businesses. How do you leverage technology to set up new businesses? And from there, so a lot of what I know about innovation, a lot of my experience in innovation, this intersection of business and technology that I keep on talking about, I learned it at the McKinsey Knowledge Center. So that was, if my first education was really IIT Delhi and I'm Lucknow, I think McKinsey Knowledge Center was my real education in most things that I know, digital, technology, leadership. So I have to really thank, those 8 years there. From there, I went to Fidelity. I was the CEO for India, as you have mentioned. But along with that, I had a very interesting role, which was heading strategy and transformation for Fidelity's international business, all the business outside of the US. And the Fidelity is a very, very large asset manager, one of the largest in the world, and it was a great opportunity of how do you transform a very large company. And that transformation was really a digital transformation. And I think that's a key point, which probably will come up in our conversation, that business transformation today is synonymous with digital transformation. So as I was driving that process in a large global firm, it also, I realized how difficult it was for large established companies to change,
True.
not because they don't have the intent to change, not because they don't have the resources to change, but it just, the starting point is very different. You already have a certain business, you already are working in a certain way, and the magnitude of change is too much. It's too much. The disruption is too much. So that's when I felt that I had to experience that for myself. And I went to Flipkart, which was another very, very important aspect of my digital journey. It was Flipkart, and e-commerce was the cutting edge of chaos. Was absolutely, the frontier. That's really the frontier for the digital revolution in India. And it was a great opportunity to see. E-commerce is a very high momentum business. It moves up quickly, it also goes down quickly. And we
True.
were locked into this great battle with Amazon. And it was a great opportunity of how do you turn the company around and fight a giant like Amazon. After some time there, I realized that, look, what I really enjoy doing is building businesses, and I want to be in a I've had my time working in very large companies in large roles where you spend a lot of your time managing the stakeholders, managing the politics. So I felt I had to be in a slightly smaller setup, which I can just drive. I can focus my energies on building, and that's what brought me to Incedo. And it's an amazing place, amazing opportunity for me, because I'm working with a number of Fortune 100 companies on their digital transformation. So it's a great opportunity to learn and a great opportunity to contribute. And I think the very interesting thing is that a lot of the challenges that I had seen in India over my 20-year career in India, now in United States and working with the marquee names in the corporate world, I find that the challenges are actually very, very similar. So it is reassuring in some sense. And also it's a, just from an India perspective, that okay, you know it's not that, it's not that things are so bad. If in United States with the best companies also you see a very similar set of challenges, then there is hope for companies in India.
No, absolutely. In the beginning, you said that I have asked a very lengthy question, but 10 on 10 to you to give me a very, very, very methodical answer to that question. I mean, you were bang on from the beginning till the end. And what you explained about that internet era and the failure, I think you said McKinsey was your, greatest lesson in life. I would say that the failure could have been the best lesson for your life, because I remember at that time in 1999, 2000, when Pradeep Kar used to hold those large India Internet World. There was something called India Internet World. I'm sure you must remember that. And it created rage of a sort that all of the other large expos actually got dashed, but it died a very sudden death. And many startups at that time. I mean, Kumud Goel started something called Jaldi.com, I remember, and Mahadev.com. I mean, there were so many startups. Probably it was quite an early. Um, I mean, too early to ride that wave. But yeah, lessons learned, and you have learned your lessons in a very different way. Um, so, just before we dive into the core contents of the book and seek your expertise on what, when, why, where, and who of digital, let me ask you one key question. Um, how accomplished or how restless are you after traveling this distance in your corporate life? Sometimes writing a book means slowing down. Sometimes it means a fresh start, and sometimes it also means shifting gears. What is it in your case?
Rahul, I think it is actually all of the above. So life is always full of contradictions. So at one level, I feel very relaxed. Because I'm a great believer and also follower of the various the Indian spiritual traditions practices. So I do a lot of meditation, and I've been doing so for last 35 years. So I think I've generally gotten to a point where I feel very comfortable and relaxed and generally in the present moment. And also when you've gone through a couple of big failures in your life, it just it relaxes you, because then okay, I've gone down, I came back up, I went down, I came back up, it's okay, whatever happens, one can deal with it. So I feel very relaxed. At the same time, I feel great sense uh, of mission. I feel a great sense of urgency, that there is so much to contribute, there is so much to say, that I feel very privileged. The education I've had, both the you know going through IIT Delhi, I am Lucknow, but also the entire career I've had, I've been so privileged, and there is so much I know, and I feel that okay, I have to contribute. So there are ideas for at least three more books, which are there,
Great.
uh, and I'm working on them in different stages. And of course, I have the job of building, what is a very interesting high growth company. So there is lots to look forward to, Rahulji. There is a lot, and I think the whole aspect of publishing the book, and therefore an opportunity of having a lot of conversations, especially what I especially enjoy is talking to younger professionals, talking, and when I talk to them, there is, I feel okay, if I can make even 5 people, 10 people, I can spark them. It is such an amazing thing. So I really feel that there is so much to do.
No, I can understand that. Both success and failure make you more humane, make you gives you more humility, and at the same time, the kind of wisdom that you have acquired in different roles, in different trajectories of life. Um, it's all reflected in the book, and I'm glad to know that you are preparing for three more. I mean, we'll see more of an author, Nitin, than a CEO. Let me with that note, let me move into now. That's the time that I decide to dive into the core contents of the book. The core of the book is your elaboration and detailing of the seven building blocks. And for the benefit of our viewers, let me name those blocks, starting with new rules of business, industry maturity curves, digital technologies, uh, global delivery model, organizational transformation, entrepreneurial leadership, and talent. Now, let us talk about each one of them in a precise manner. Conventionally, or if I may say so, rudimentarily, the thinking is that it's technology that plays a pivotal role and leads to transformation. Even in your book, you have called technology as the heart of any digital transformation program. However, We can't interpret this comment in isolation. However, the seven building blocks that you have mentioned, I think each one of them has its own importance, and you cannot achieve anything without the help of the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, can you please explain about each of these seven
Sure,
chapters?
sure, sure, Rahul. So look, first your comment about technology, I think that is uh, it's a very important point. Let's first start by unpacking that. Technology is the foundation of digital. As you mentioned right in the beginning, the expansion of computing power, the explosion of number of devices, storage capacity, all of that coming together is the fuel, the driver for the digital age. But at the same time, um, a lot of digital transformation efforts fail. 70-80% of digital transformation efforts fail. And I would think one of the biggest reasons for that is to see digital transformation programs as only technology programs. Yeah. Because technology is one aspect, but there are many other things that go into digital. It's a digital is this entire age. Digital is what both at an enterprise level and individual level we are facing every day. Now it is become so big, yeah, that typically we are looking at one aspect of it. Different people are looking at different aspects of it, and they see that as reality. It is like the famous story of the seven blind men and the elephant in the room, that somebody looks at the trunk, somebody looks at the leg, somebody looks at the tail, and for them that is the reality. That is the story of digital. That's the story of digital transformation. And that is why I feel very strongly that it is important to bring out a comprehensive view. Yeah. I think the seven building blocks also are perhaps not 100% comprehensive. Yeah. They perhaps cover, I think, 80 to 90% of the issues. Yeah. There are still, I can think of an eighth block or a ninth block. Yeah. So there is, but it is important to think about the overall picture. Now, very quickly going through the seven blocks. The first block, the new rules of business. So the fundamental point here is that it's a different world. It's a different world. The speed is different, the customer is different, data is different. It is not a sequential world, it's an iterative world. It is not, it's a very interdisciplinary world. There are a number of aspects of this digital age which are very different. Now if you continue to play with the same rules, yeah, as earlier, you will fail. It's like cricket. You're playing cricket, but if all your life you've played 5-day test matches and then you are suddenly pitchforked into T20, what will happen? You will fail. That is what is happening. If one of the big reasons for failure of digital transformation is that is you're seeing it only as a technology program, the other very big reason is that you are doing what you were always doing in the physical world and just taking that to the digital world. You will fail. It's a different world, and therefore you need to have new rules. Yeah, that itself is a very big conversation. I'll give you just maybe one or two examples just to illustrate how you think about strategy. Yeah, traditionally you would say, okay, you do a market assessment, you do strategy. From strategy, then you lay out your execution priorities. Logical. Yeah, but the best laid plans do not survive contact with reality in this digital world. Yeah, it's like Muhammad Ali saying that, oh, everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face. And the digital age, you're getting punched in the face all the time. So this process doesn't work. Strategy and well laid out plans can actually be a bottleneck. That's what I realized when I was back in Fidelity and leading global strategy and transformation. So what you need is, it doesn't mean that you don't need strategy, but a very agile strategy, very light strategy. And then it's really about execution. Execution is king. You focus on execution. Some things work, some things don't work, and you connect the dot. What works you do more of, what doesn't work you don't do. And and that actually gives you clarity on your strategy. So there is now a more iterative relationship between strategy and execution. And just illustrating one rule, okay, there are 8 rules like this. So that's the new rules of business. Now coming to this thing about industry maturity curves. See, to drive digital transformation, you first need to understand what is happening to your customer and what is happening to your industry value chain. Without that, what is the digital transformation you can do, what that you will do? And in most cases, the definition of who your customer is changing. Yeah. In most industries, yeah. In most industries, what is happening is that because of digital, there is a disintermediation happening. Yeah. Industry chains are B2C, business to consumer. They are B2B, business to business, or B2B2C, or B2B2B2B2C, some complicated acronyms. Yeah. But irrespective, what is happening is that this direct to customer channel, because of digital, is becoming lot more powerful. So who your end customer is changing. If I was a B2B business, certainly I'm having to think about my end customer. So let me give you an example. My company works with a cybersecurity company who generally works with industrial clients. Okay, very traditional business, very traditional clients. Now they're putting their offerings on App Store. It's a very different paradigm. Okay, life sciences, historically, for any pharmaceutical company, who was the customer? The customer was not the patient, the customer was the physician. They're selling to the physician. Okay, now suddenly the patient is also the customer. Yeah. So there are very big shifts happening in who your customer is, and therefore what your industry value chain is, which you need to understand. Now, different industries are at a different level of maturity. Some, like retail or media, are very highly mature from a digital adoption perspective. Then maybe you have financial services, then you have telecom, and then you go into manufacturing and oil and gas and so on. Now, if you understand what that maturity curve looks like, where are some industries who are ahead of you, that gives you the insight, the foresight on what is likely to happen in your industry. And that is the second building block. The third building block around digital technology, which is often seen as the big thing or as the entirety of digital, is one of the seven building blocks. And in my experience, is very rarely the bottleneck.
Exactly.
Is very rarely the bottleneck. The other building blocks tend to be much bigger bottlenecks.
Absolutely.
Now the technology, of course, is you have the stack of experience, analytics, data, operations layer. You have cloud, you have blockchain, you have IoT. There are different elements of that stack. The only key point I would make is that, and AI, of course, that one should not look at these in isolation. Often these are, see, as a technology provider or a technology product company, you often sell them as, okay, I'm selling AI or I'm selling cloud. Yeah. These are all interconnected. So think of this as an orchestra. Individual player in the orchestra has to be very good, but they have to be in sync. They have to be in sync. Okay. If they're not in sync, the music will be very jarring. Yeah. And the orchestra conductor here, which is a very key role, is data. So in this whole digital game, the most important role is data, and whether you are in a virtuous cycle or not is driven by data. So that is the third building block. The fourth is about global. And in this digital world, every business is global. There is nothing like a local business. Okay. The moment you put up a website or an app, it is global. Yes, of course, the demand is global, but very importantly, the supply or the delivery also has to be global. Every business in this digital age has at least two challenges: innovation and reducing costs. There is no business in the world which does not have these two challenges. Now, if you have to do it, and large part of that is technology, you cannot do it without leveraging a global supply chain, whether it is India or Eastern Europe and Latin America. Yeah, because that is the only way you can drive innovation and efficiency at the same time. That's the fourth building block. The fifth building block is around organization transformation, which to my mind, if I were to put things at scale, is by far the biggest building block. This is the biggest blocker. The reason, if you look at again why organization digital transformation fails, organization transformation is the big issue, and why large companies are finding it so difficult. Again, a big topic. Number six, so far it was all about enterprises. Number six and seven are about the individual. Entrepreneurial leadership. Now, to lead in this era, you have to go away from that manager orientation. That manager to leader, what we have been talking about for so many years, is now real. You can't do it without that. Yeah. And finally, it gets down to talent. That, hey, what needs to be different? What are you expecting differently from talent? And I think there are two things which I would really call about. First is an entrepreneurial mindset, yeah, which is a mindset to create and a mindset to take risks, yeah. And the second thing I would call out is very sharp, strong problem solving, because situations will keep on changing, but your ability to get to the core and bottom of any situation, that to me is problem solving. And entrepreneurial mindset and problem solving to me are the two most fundamental skills for the digital age. So sorry, this was a long answer,
Oh,
but
absolutely
I
not
tried to
long.
summarize 550 pages in like 7-8 minutes.
That's what I was about to say, that it was absolutely not long. 550 pages summarized in precisely 6-7 minutes. I think that's an audio book people are listening to right now. Summary of the book has already been revealed. So I would urge people to go and hit Amazon.com, Amazon.in, and buy the copy of this book. However, let me break the monotony here and take a few questions which are coming in from our listeners, our friends. So, one of my friends, Mehriyar, who's a CIO, wants to ask, what are your views in today's challenging age when someone feels what to do next? I mean, he is wanting to ask when a person is stuck, and questions like, will it be the right move for me or not? uh, you know they get, I mean, they overpower the person. So what should they do? What should they be doing in those circumstances?
Yeah, a very interesting question. And see, look, there are two ways to process this. First is outside in, and second is inside out. Yeah, let me explain that. So outside in is, when you seek information from outside to make decisions. So you talk to peers, you talk to mentors, um, you seek information, you compare options, you assess. Yeah, that is of course one way of doing it, which is what we do, I think, naturally. And as a CIO, I'm sure you're very, you have that network, you have that training, and I'm sure you would be doing that. In this very complex world, what I think is even more critical is inside out, which is going within yourself. I think the answers are all within us, but it's very difficult to access them, because we are living in this age of noise. Yeah, in this digital world, there are constantly, we are bombarded with so many signals, and we have a lot of noise, a lot of noise in our head, in our senses, in our body. Now, if through, at least my process of doing it is meditation. That whenever I have to take any critical decisions, I sit in meditation. When I have to take really big decisions, I go for a silence camp. I go for a silence retreat for 4 or 5 days. And after that, I'm not thinking there. I'm just in silence. But that's the beauty, that when you quieten down, you just have clarity. You get clarity. And I think that's an amazing, it's not mumbo jumbo. To me, it is a very scientific process. It's a very scientific process of going within yourself, quietening yourself, whether it is meditation, whether it is gardening, whether it is running, whatever process allows you to quieten the noise in your mind, and kind of go into that depth of quite, of silence within yourself. In that silence, I think the answers come out very, very clearly.
No, I kind of resonate with this thought, and very profound thought that came in from you, that one should resort to something where they find silence, or where they find a quietness of the atmosphere, so that they can actually rejuvenate themselves and start thinking afresh. So we will keep taking questions as they come. I need to move on to the next question. When we read about these so-called digital transformations, the data suggests something which is not so encouraging. The data suggests that most of them fail. Some data even says that 80-85% pardon me, investments in digital fail as they don't deliver on, or don't fire at all. That means either the priorities weren't fixed rightly, or the framework was wrong, or maybe the alignment of IT with business was a challenge. Um, how do you interpret this through these? I mean, you have explained it very well, how integrated these seven blocks are. So how do you give a recipe to find a solution to this, to fix it?
Yeah. No, it is the entire thesis of the book, Rahul, that digital is a great opportunity, but so much of digital and so much money is being spent on it, but so many digital transformation efforts fail. I've talked about a conservative number in my book, which is 70%. I think you talked about 80-85%, which I agree with. I think that is the more realistic and likely number. So why is that number? It is a failure both of strategy and a failure of execution, Rahul, at both levels. Yeah. At the level of strategy, which is what should be done, and that's where I talked about it earlier as well, that the biggest issue is legacy companies taking what they're doing in the physical world and taking that, just transposing that online. And often there is this great fear of cannibalization. Yeah. which which makes them do that they're so, that they just take the same business model. On execution, the big challenge, and again I mentioned it, is thinking of it as a technology program and missing out on all the organizational and change management aspects of it. Yeah. Because digital is not like a functional program. Yeah. It's fundamentally driven from the set of customer needs. Yeah. And um, customer needs are not marketing or technology or finance needs. They are needs. So you need to bring different set of capabilities together to address them. And that, in my experience, Rahul, tends to be the biggest difference. If the digital natives succeed because they have less of that organizational legacy, so
Legacy.
they are able to organize teams in a more flexible, customer centric way. Whereas for larger organizations who are caught in the functional structures, it is very difficult. Yeah. So I'm simplifying somewhat, but there is a big challenge of strategy. There is this big challenge of execution. Now, seven building blocks is the recipe. That is the recipe of how you go. You have to go through them. And there is a meta level. There are some fundamental changes. There is industry maturity curves, how you think about the value chain is changing in what you do. Now, this to bring this all into practice or execution, I strongly believe in this two-speed formula.
Yep.
Yeah, two-speed formula. See, again, we are in a world of paradoxes. You need to work on short term and long term. Yeah, you need to work on strategy and execution. You need to drive growth and profitability. There are a lot of these things that have to happen together. They can't be sequential. Okay, so speed, the two-speed formula, which is speed one, which is quick wins. Yeah, digital is a very, very big change. If you keep on waiting, you will get lost. So you have to build positive momentum. How do you build positive momentum? By addressing specific customer pain points or specific customer opportunities and just going after them where you can make a difference in 6 12 months. Yeah. At the same time, you need to have the speed too, which is the bigger picture. What is the broader business model change or a broader platform that you're trying to create? Yeah. Because just speed one will not do it. Speed one is the necessary way to start the momentum. Yeah. But if not anchored in a speed two of the big picture, will create confusion. Yeah. So this two speed framework is, is the, if the real synthesis of my 25 years experience. This is, what I think this two speed execution mindset and approach is really fundamental to making progress.
So I think you preempted that question, which I had in mind to ask you, which was about the two-speed framework that you have been talking about. However, from this conversation, I just wanted to. I mean, I'm a little intrigued now to ask you. You know, um, a CIO or a technology leader from a legacy from an organization which has a lot of technology debt and is ridden by legacy also has a lot of frictions in the boardroom, in the in different functions, vis-a-vis an organization which is just born in the cloud and has zero technology debt. The thinking is very different, and therefore they have the liberty to take quick decisions, and even if they have to fail, they fail faster. um, so how there's a long gap. I mean, there's a wide gap that has to be bridged between the two. So is it appropriate for us to compare the two, or how do you think that that gap should bridge?
Yeah, see, that's the great challenge today. Yeah, and what has been playing out for the last 5 10 years is that digital natives have certainly stolen a march, a big march over quote unquote large legacy enterprises. Yeah, you compare Amazon versus Sears or even Walmart.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the story, or Tesla versus General Motors, or you can, Apple versus Nokia. You can keep going on and on and on. That has been the story. I'll just give a broader perspective, and then I'll get to some more specifics. See, to me, the broader perspective is that we are still in early stages of the digital age. There's a lot of action that has happened, but there is still a lot way to go, and lot that will play out. Okay, so no need to get too excited. Yeah, so it's like early days. So again, I'll take a cricket analogy. I'm a really love sports. So think of digital age as a 5-day test match and 5 test matches series. Okay, right now, Rahul, we are at lunch of day one of the first test match. So a lot of action has happened.
Okay.
Yeah, already by lunch. Yeah, so everybody's feeling very excited, but there's a long way to go. You remember the India Australia series or even the India England series. India were bundled out for 37 in the first test match. Okay, but lot of other things then happened. So I think it's a little bit, that's how I look at the digital age. Yeah, the first round goes to the digital natives for sure. Yeah, but I do not think at all that it is game over by any stretch of imagination for the legacy enterprises. Not at all. Yeah. Now, of course, the change for them is more difficult.
True.
Yeah, the change for them is more difficult. There are technology reasons. There is more tech debt. You have to invest behind it. How do you modernize? Legacy modernization. So, but these are solvable problems.
Absolutely.
It's a capital and a capacity issue. Yeah, it's a capital and a capacity issue. Yeah. Now the point is that legacy enterprises also have huge strengths. Yeah. Amazon is also going and then trying to hoover up physical businesses. Why is it doing it? Yeah. Because everybody realizes that, look, end of the day, it is about the end customer and what the end customer wants to do over their lifestyle or their life cycle. Many needs can be met purely remotely. Some needs will certainly need the physical interaction. Yeah. And that's where the legacy enterprises have a big benefit. Banks have an advantage. Yeah. So the point is for the legacy enterprises to have now build this understanding of, look, we actually do have advantages, we do have assets, but how do we build a business model? Okay, this pure digital business model, maybe I'm lagging in this. How do I build an omni-channel business model which combines digital and my 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 physical presence? How do I play the omni-channel game? Yeah. How do I leverage the brand and the trust that brand invokes? How do I do that? So there is, see, there is a game to be played. Yeah. And I think increasingly organizations are waking up to that. So let me pause here. There are more aspects we can investigate, but I want to bring this, at least the way I look at it, and in my work with clients in this space, I think it's far from game over. There is a lot to be learned from the digital natives, but I think we will see a lot of developments over the coming years.
Great. I mean, I'm so much in awe of this conversation with you. I think that we should have an opportunity to have you face to face, so that the whole atmosphere is warmer and more conducive for each other to interact with you. However, I'll again break the monotony, as I said, and I'll honor my friends who have taken time out to join us and take their questions here. So another good friend, another old and good friend, Kiran Belsekar, who works as a CISO of an FSI organization, wants to ask, what's your advice for CIOs and IT leaders to ensure that they are on top of it? What are the skills that they need to sharpen?
Yeah. Kiran, I think the most important thing for a, a digital age CIO is to build that deep understanding of the end customer. Yeah. Now, see, the starting point of this change, it's a very complex beast. Yeah, it's like a maze. It's like a maze. But then you say, okay, in this maze, where do I begin to hold this? Yeah, and it will get to the end customer, because clearly in this digital age, the customer was always king. Now customer is god. Okay, so for the CI and for the CIO, the expectation or the opportunity is not just about the technology execution, but is to drive and shape the business strategy driven through technology opportunities. Yeah. New technology, what it can enable, and therefore what does it mean for our business strategy. Yeah. Now for you to become a real contributor to it, you need to understand the customer at a completely different level of depth and intimacy. Now, most CIOs will believe they understand business. Yeah. Now, my humble submission there is that often that understanding is at the level of general knowledge. Yeah. But if you have to drive the strategy at a boardroom level, that general knowledge will not be enough. Yeah. You need to have intimate knowledge. You need to have intimate knowledge. And I think that is, to me, the most important skill to upgrade on. If I can add a second one, that a CIO equally has to be the chief change officer. Yeah. Now, for a digital transformation program, which there is a big role responsibility for it, which ends up on the CIO's shoulders, is first and foremost a change management program. Yeah. That without driving organizational changes in terms of structure, in terms of team design, in terms of collaboration models, in terms of culture, in terms of processes, it will not happen. It will not happen. Simple. Yeah. And that's a change management exercise which will not be driven by HR, or HR has to be a partner in that, but the CIO has to be really the sutradhar, has to be the karta dharta of that. Yeah. So I think the big ask of CIO, the expectation is that you are already on top of technology and modern technology, but really the two fronts are, how do you get really intimate and deep understanding of the customer, because that is how you'll be able to contribute to strategy. And second is that you have to take on the mantle of being the chief change officer.
Great. I think Kiran, you got your answer. Another question I will take before I move on to my next or last set of questions. I'm sorry that I'll have to extend your duration on this call for a little while.
Sure.
But Pawan Roy, who works for multinational, multifaceted. I mean, it's a diversified conglomerate, large legacy conglomerate, has a very pertinent question. He says that digital transformation has three important parts, which is people, processes, and technology. Of course, using technology to map processes for people to use it. Very well summarized again, Pawan. So adoption change, which is people's mindset, is a tough part. So his question now is, what is the best approach to mainly for the legacy companies, manufacturing verticals, etc., to 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 succeed in their digital transformation with these blocks, with these mind blocks?
Yeah. 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 3 points I would make, Pawan, that, first is that this thing about adoption. Yeah. That, see, to solve the adoption problem, whether it is at the employee adoption or even at the client adoption level, I think a very key aspect is to co-opt the end user as part of the design process. Yeah. So if you've already built something and then you're expecting somebody to use it, it's like a push method. Yeah. And a push in this age of complexity and when people have multiple things happening doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of, in the building blocks, my first building block of 8 new rules of business, one of my rules is around co-creation. Co-creation. This is the era of co-creation. Yeah. So whatever process you are building, redesigning, think of co-creation. I think with co-creation, the the acceptance issue, I think you will be not solve it fully, but I think you can make a difference. Yeah. Number one. Number two, what I would suggest for manufacturing companies or companies who are significantly, who are still in very early stages of the digital journey, that think SaaS. Yeah. Instead of trying to build bespoke solutions and bespoke processes, see, this is, we are also, one of the aspects of digital is the software as a solution revolution, is the cloud revolution. Yeah. Today, technology has very fundamentally moved from build to consume. Yeah. So instead of putting your energy on building technology, yeah, focus your energy on figuring out that what are the software SaaS solutions which are already there, relevant for your industry, which you can potentially deploy so that you can focus your energy on the consume question. Yeah. So that is a second kind of thread, I would say. Third is, when, if we are talking about very large conglomerates, so very large businesses, one of the things that I have seen being done and used quite effectively is to create like a new co. Yeah. To create like a new company or a new business, which is a digital first business. Yeah. That, look, our mothership is too difficult to change. Now to change it, we'll first create like a new example. Yeah. So create a new business, which is digital first, build that as a role model, build that as a success story, and then kind of once it is there, either grow that or then transplant aspects from it back into the mothership. Yeah. So I don't know the specifics of your situation, but there are three kind of different threads that I have talked about: the co-create notion, leverage, build versus consume, focus on consume rather than build, and this whole thing about being a very disruptive notion of creating a new code.
Wonderful. I think all three have their own merits, and especially in this age, it is imperative to think um, away from the mindset that I want to own technology, I want to own assets. I think that era is gone, and many organizations have proved it absolutely futile. All the internet age, digital age companies have proved it for futile. Last example that you gave was very apt, and I mean, very old Indian conglomerate called Tata is actually working on that formula now, called Tata Digital. They're coming up with something called Super App. From where every legacy organization will start drawing instances. They will start leveraging that digital first approach. So absolutely wonderful. I'm thinking as if I'm now talking to a professor. I started talking to a CEO, and now all of a sudden I'm thinking I'm talking to a professor. Okay, I'll not hold you much. Two last questions from me. First is about the persona of CIO, CTO, CDO, or the transformer. you know um, these are often out. CIOs are the ones who have taken the maximum brunt and still stood strong and held their positions. They're often outsmarted by their business counterpart in an organization. Again, not a very generalized statement. However, it's quite true that in the organizations with legacy and deep tech debt, that is true, because business guys are more articulate than they get more time and attention. So how does this impact the digital transformation? How can CIO be more impactful in the boardroom?
Yeah, yeah. We spoke about a little bit earlier, Rahul, that see, this is a great look. This is a great opportunity for CIOs. Yeah, their time in the sun is now. Yeah, and I love this phrase "carpe diem." Yeah, carpe diem. And it sees the moment. Yeah, it sees the moment. If you don't seize it, then of course there will be all this. You will miss the moment as well, because this is what is needed. The boundaries between technology and business are blurring. Technology is driving the business. It is a very natural opportunity for um, the CIO to step up and drive that role. I have said it in some of the earlier conversations as well, that today for the organization, I believe after the CEO, the most important role is the CIO. Yeah. And if there is one more person who has to be added to the board, the CEO will typically be on the board. If there is one more person from the executive team, there is now a strong case for the CIO to be that person. Historically, that has probably been the CFO. Yeah, you have the CEO and the CFO. I think there's a strong case now for the CIO to be on the board. Yeah. So that is the opportunity. Now the question is how you step up. Yeah. And the foundation of it is what I talked about earlier, which is an intimate understanding of the customer and the business. That is the foundation. I don't think it is about articulation or all of that. Okay. Board members typically tend to be fairly experienced and wise people who are not driven by communication and whether somebody is very glib or not, because they are trained to see beyond that. They are looking at, okay, what is the substance and essence of what somebody is saying. Yeah. So I think this whole communication thing is highly overplayed. I'll give you an example. When I joined McKinsey long time back, and there was always this thing that, oh, McKinsey is such a great global firm, and always very concerned about how well we were articulating. Yeah. And and then I saw consultants from Germany or Japan or Korea who could barely speak in English, and it never mattered. It never mattered. Okay. So this whole articulation thing, I feel Rahul is highly overplayed and doesn't really matter. Okay. As long as what you have to say is powerful. Yeah. Now the question is how will it become powerful? And it will become, I am assuming CIOs will generally understand technology well. If they understand the customer deeply, it's a magic formula. It's a magic formula. I think it will be explosive. Yeah. So I think that's really the thing to focus on. I think the other thing maybe is to really build that trust and partnership with the CEO. Sometimes the CIOs are not directly reporting to the CEO. Yeah, often that may be historically that might have been the case, reporting to the chief operating officer or maybe even the CFO. I think building the direct trust and relationship with the CEO is important. See, the CEO needs to figure this technology thing out. Yeah, and most times the CEO doesn't know it. So the CEO needs a partner. Either you play that role or they will get a consultant.
No, I completely agree with you. Without spilling the beans, your last statement. I have seen some very large organizations going that route. Where CIO was very politely asked to make way for a consulting organizations to come in, and that's a very dangerous precedence. You know, without any malice towards the consulting organization, that means the CIO didn't assert himself well and articulate himself well, communicate himself well, and communicate the value of technology, communicate the importance and essence of technology. Okay, we are already 6 minutes over and above our allocated time. My final question to you, before we call it a night in India, and you call it a day in your part of the world. Let's talk about call for actions. In each of the 7 building blocks, there is a hidden treasure trail which needs a very meticulous following and action plan. But for the benefit of the CIOs who are listening to the author Nitin Seth live, can you tell us what should be their approach in terms of um, their own positioning, capabilities, structure to win this game with the right measures?
Big question, Rahul. You ask these big questions. So let me try. The call to action. See, overall framework. Again, I would say two speed. The quick speed one of quick win and speed two of the bigger kind of bigger change. And I'll try to articulate for each of the 7 building blocks crisply. So, building block number one on new rules of business. I think the quick win there is the co-create with customer. Yeah, that look for those opportunities. See, that's the game changer. That's the world we are in. Okay, we are not working in silos, and the whole definition of company is changing. Okay, the boundaries between customer and who you are blurring. So this co-create with customer, I think, is the one where you can get the biggest bang for the buck. Yeah. Building block number two, which is an industry maturity curve. Whatever industry you are in, B2C, B2B, industrial, retail, manufacturing, think about the direct to customer channel. That is likely your most powerful disruptor. Yeah. That is your whatever industry. B2C is going to become more important. So think about that. And that's okay. And that will be, it's a platform driven business. Digital, that is the main power of digital. Building block number three, which is around digital technologies. The key call to action to my mind is that I will say two here. Number one, that cloud is in today's movement is the most natural way of driving your transformation journey. Yeah, that the definition of cloud has become very large and is constantly expanding. Driving this transformation, to me business transformation is synonymous with digital transformation, and driving digital transformation from a technology perspective, the most natural way of doing that is cloud transformation. Yeah, that's my nugget there. And Um, and maybe if I can add a second one in that, the most important aspect is your data strategy. Yeah, that is to, in my experience, is the difference between whether you are in a virtuous cycle or you're in a negative cycle. Yeah. So how do you bring the right quality and depth of data together? That I think is a very, very critical thing. Building block number 4, which is on global delivery model. Um, the point I would make is that, especially from a perspective of CIOs and technology organizations, how do you deliver on innovation and cost efficiency at the same time? Yeah. So that is the expectation. That is the expectation, that innovation and cost efficiency at the same time. Building block number 6, building block number 5, which is on organizational transformation. Many things that can be talked about here. The most fundamental shift to my mind is, how do you build cross-functional teams? Yeah, many things that can be talked about, but how do you go from a functional structure to a more product or a customer oriented structure where you bring different set of functional capabilities together? Yeah, that to me is the key nugget to focus on. Building block number 6, which is about entrepreneurial leadership. How do you move from this manager to leader mindset? I think there are two things that I would call out here. I think first is a very different attitude to risk taking. Yeah. See, you have, in the digital age, the biggest risk is not taking risks. Yeah. And often from a legacy enterprise, and the more senior you are, somehow this whole mindset of risk taking, you there is a risk kind of aversion that can happen. Yeah. And that is the greatest risk for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you unblock yourself and developing this perspective of taking more risk? And spending time with younger colleagues perhaps will be very helpful in that, because they come with a very different kind of fresh positive energy. So risk taking. The other thing I would mention, the second nugget I would mention here, is about learning and along with that, unlearning. Yeah. So the biggest challenge those of us, I'm going to be 50 in another 2 months, people at my age face, is that we think we know a lot. And that is the biggest problem, because there is so much change that you have to constantly learn, and to learn you have to first unlearn. And if you
Absolutely.
think you are quote unquote successful, it becomes very difficult, because with that there is a certain arrogance, there is a certain hubris that happens, and that stops us from listening and stops us from learning. Yeah. So I think those are the two nuggets I would mention. And for new age talent, oh wow, what an opportunity. This is the era of abundance. This is the era of opportunity. I think this is just go spread your wings. And I think entrepreneurship is not just about doing a startup. Yeah. In every organization, what any organization is now looking for is entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurship is about two things. It is about creation, but creation comes with risk taking. I talked about it earlier as well. And I think that's the mindset to develop. And along with that, problem solving. It's a very complex world. Any specific skill will have a short lifespan. But if you build the skill of problem solving and being able to get to the root of any situation, that will be a lifelong skill. So again, I've tried to cover some key nuggets, across the 7 building blocks. Hopefully that was helpful, Rahul.
No, so nice of you to, I mean, revisit those 7 building blocks in form of an answer to my last question. I think it was one of the most enriching conversations I've had in the recent times, and I wish I had a little more time. We are already 15 minutes above the required time. I wish I had more time to spend with you, but it calls for another round of conversation, similar round of conversation with you on different. I mean, the kind of wisdom that you have shared has given me more food for thought to prepare a list of another list of elaborate questions. This time I'll keep it short. I'll not ask you long questions. Thank you very much for being with us on this show. And I'm sure all the listeners, all the friends who joined us for this have enriched themselves through your knowledge. You don't look 50 at all, so don't worry about it. uh, all right, so thank you very much, Nitin, for taking up our request and being on this show. Stay safe, stay very healthy, and keep sharing your wisdom with all of us in India. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks, Rahul. It was such a pleasure talking to you, and thanks for the opportunity of sharing some thoughts. And again, in the end, I would just end with carpe diem. Carpe diem. It is such a great movement. It's a great movement for the CIO community, which you are so involved in. I think it's also a great movement for overall India in terms of what digital means. Maybe that's the topic focus of our next conversation. But I generally see great set of opportunities, but we will only access them if we act. If we
Absolutely.
act, and that is seize the moment. That would be my parting message and request
Yeah,
for
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the essence is in act, nothing else. So I will also host this session, on YouTube for the people who have missed it due to the time issues, time constraint, so that they can actually view it at their convenience. Thank you very much once again.
Okay, thank you. Bye for now. Bye. Bye.